We're closing out the quarter today, and as is tradition in my philosophical inquiry courses, we're dedicating this last session to a topic that beautifully encapsulates everything we've discussed: syncretism, metaphor, and the cosmological roots of human belief. We're going to deconstruct the modern phenomenon of Christmas. I call this lecture The Grand Convergence: Solar Metaphor, Shamanic Flight, and the Nativity of Light. Now, I've organized this from my notes, so bear with me as we trace these profound, interconnected narratives. The ancient astronomical heart, Sol Invictus. First, let's address the bedrock of this entire season, the winter solstice. This isn't just a day, it's the annual point of maximum tension between light and darkness. The solstice, occurring around December 21st, is the day with the shortest period of daylight in the northern hemisphere. To ancient peoples, utterly dependent on the sun for life and warmth, this was terrifying. The sun, the great celestial deity, had seemingly fallen to its lowest point. This brings us to a universal cosmic metaphor: the solar deity's death and rebirth, the standstill, the crucifixion. For approximately 3 days immediately following the solstice, the sun appears to rise and set at the same point on the horizon. It seems to have died or stood still. That's the etymology of solstice. The resurrection, December 25th. It is on the third day after the standstill, December 25th, that ancient observers could finally perceive the sun moving 1 degree north on the horizon. The days begin to lengthen, and the light is reborn. The sun god is triumphant. Jesus and the solstice. The early church, in a brilliant act of theological and cultural syncretism, chose December 25th as the date for the birth of Jesus, the light of the world. They weren't just picking a random day, they were superimposing the narrative of the sun, Christ, onto the oldest, most powerful cosmic metaphor of the sun, the Sol Invictus, or unconquered sun. The Christian narrative of the resurrection of Christ 3 days after death beautifully mirrors the solar resurrection 3 days after the solstice. This is not coincidence, it is metaphorical alignment. The shamanic underpinnings of the North Pole mythos. Next, let's pivot to the figure of Santa Claus. The modern image of Santa, red suit, flying reindeer down the chimney, is a bizarrely accurate reflection of Siberian shamanic rituals from cultures like the Koryak, who utilized a specific fungus, the Amanita muscaria. In ecstatic flight, the fungus in question is the red and white Amanita muscaria mushroom, a powerful psychoactive entheogen. Look at the colors, red and white, the very palette of our modern Santa. 1. The suit and the delivery. Shamans in these regions, who would collect and distribute the mushrooms during midwinter ceremonies of renewal, often wore red and white fur-trimmed coats to honor the fungi. They lived in dwellings called yurts, where the main entrance could be blocked by snow. The shaman would therefore often enter through the smoke hole or roof vent, the functional equivalent of a chimney. He descended, bearing the gift. 2. The flying reindeer. The reindeer in these regions love to eat Amanita muscaria. They metabolize the compounds, and their urine is still psychoactive and less toxic for human consumption. The ecstatic visions induced by the mushroom and its compounds often include the sensation of flying. Combine a shaman, a sleigh, and the spiritual energy of the reindeer, and you have the primordial image of a figure flying through the air on a magical journey. 3. Hanging the stockings. To reduce the mushroom's toxicity, they were often dried. One method was to hang them from pine boughs or, perhaps, near the fire. We can speculate that this ancient practice may echo in our tradition of hanging socks or stockings by the chimney to dry and await a gift. This isn't to say Santa is a shaman, but rather that the powerful, memorable cultural iconography of Santa Claus, the colors, the entry, the flying animals, appears to be a remarkable, though likely unintentional, inheritance of very ancient, pre-Christian winter solstice rituals. The final synthesis: Saint Nicholas and the stars. The modern Santa is thus a brilliant synthesis. The saint. The name itself is an abbreviation of Saint Nicholas, a 4th century Greek bishop renowned for his secret gift-giving. He gives the figure his moral purpose. The myth: Norse mythology's Odin, who rode the sky in the midwinter wild hunt, contributed the idea of a bearded, powerful figure traversing the night sky. The appearance: American illustrators like Thomas Nast codified the modern visual appearance, drawing on the poem A Visit from St. Nicholas, which gave us the reindeer names and the jolly old elf image. The Star of Bethlehem. Finally, we have the star, a celestial marker that roots the entire narrative in the language of the cosmos. The Magi, or wise men, were astrologers. The Star of Bethlehem, mentioned only in the Gospel of Matthew, was a sign visible only to them. While theological, this story has inspired astronomical investigation. The most compelling modern theory centers on a rare astronomical event, the great conjunction of the planets Jupiter and Saturn that occurred around 7 to 6 BCE. Jupiter, the king planet, associated with divine sovereignty and royalty. Saturn, sometimes associated with the people of Israel or the East. The alignment. When these two brilliant planets appeared to merge or align in close proximity, it would have been a profoundly significant portent, a celestial proclamation of the birth of a new and extraordinary king. So as we depart for the break, I urge you to see Christmas not as a monolithic holiday, but as a rich philosophical text. It's a spectacular instance of human culture, absorbing, transforming, and retelling the oldest story in the book, the endless cycle of death, darkness, and the unconquerable return of the light. Happy Solstice, everyone!
Please click like and then subscribe. Also share this video with your friends. Thank you.